Morning grade 7s, welcome to lesson 5. Today we will be starting a new topic. We'll be starting topic 7, decimal fractions, and that can be found on page 90 in your textbook. So the first subheading, read and write decimal fractions. So it says here, decimal fractions are used to measure quantities such as distance, mass, and volume. A decimal fraction can have a whole number and a fractional part, which are separated by a comma. So just like a common fraction, we had a whole number with our fraction. Decimals, we have a whole number with our decimal part, and that's separated by a comma. The whole number is written to the left of the comma, and the fractional part is to the right of the comma. By now you should know that. We can express a decimal as a sum of fractions to the power of 10, sorry. Below you will see the value of the decimal fraction. So often I will ask you for the value of a digit in a decimal, and this is what you are going to write. So if, for example, we had our fraction, our decimal fraction 13,421. If I asked you for the value of the 4, so the first number after the comma, you would call it tenths. That's the place value, okay? Tenths with a TH there. It's not tens. If it's after the comma, you're going to put a TH. So it's tenths, and that is represented by 4 over 10. Now, the reason it's over 10 is because it's the first space. First, or one space, 1 0 as your denominator. So it's 4 over 10, and then that is equal to 0,4. You will see later on we're going to convert, and you'll understand why it's 0,4. The second one, the 2, okay, that's in the second place, so it's hundredths. Again, it's kind of like a mirror image. So usually we would work with tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Okay, that's usually how we work with numbers and units. But now when we are dealing with a decimal with a comma, it's like a mirror image. So it's first tenths, then it's hundredths, then it's thousands. Okay, always with a TH, and there's no units. There's no such thing as a unit. Okay, so hundredths, that's a second space. 2 spaces means 2 zeros, and that's 0,02. Again, we'll get to the decimals just now. And the last one, the third space, represents thousandths. That's 3 spaces, 3 zeros, and that's 0,001. Okay, so that's value. Value is in the brackets. Place value is on the outside of the bracket. So the example says, express the following decimals as a sum of fractions. Sum meaning plus. The denominators must be a power of 10. So powers of 10, I'm referring to 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000s, etc. Okay, those are powers of 10. Okay, so our first one. Our first number is 0,314. Now they want us to express just means show, the following decimal as a sum. So we're adding fractions. Okay, so this decimal has no whole number. There's 0 as my whole number, so all I put is 0. That represents my whole number. Now my fractional part, I've got 314. So we are going to write this as a common fraction, 314, because that's just the number that's given. Because there are 3 digits, we must have 3 zeros in our denominator. So in this case, our denominator would be 1,000. Okay, now the next step, our whole number stays the same, it never changes. Now we need to break up this fraction into its different parts. So into denominator of 10, 100, and 1,000. So like I explained over here, the first digit will always have a denominator of 10. The second one will always have a denominator of 100. And the third one will always have a denominator of 1,000. So let's do that. Our first number is a 3. It must have a denominator of 10. Our second number is a 1. It must have a denominator of 100 because it's in the second place, so that means 2 zeros. And the last one is the 4, and that must have a denominator of 1000 because there's 3 digits, so 3 zeros. And there we've expressed our decimal as a sum of its fractions. So that's all I wanted to see. So you're going to break it up into its different denominators. These denominators will never change, no matter what number I give you. It's always over 10, it's always over 100, it's always over 1000. If we look at the second one, we've got 12,7651. Exactly the same thing, except now we have a whole number. So our whole number is 12 plus our fraction. We're going to say 7651 over. Now we're working with 4 numbers, so we must have 4 zeros. Okay, our next step, we're going to break up this fraction, so my whole number stays the same. The first number is a 7. First number is always over 10. The second number is a 6, and that's always over 100 because it's a second number, so 2 zeros. The third number is 5. It's our third number, so we need 3 zeros. And our last number is a 1. It's our fourth place, so we need 4 zeros. And there I've expressed my decimal as a sum of its fractions. So quickly try question C on your own and then come back, resume, and we will go on. Okay, so let's quickly do C. We've got 8,526. So my whole number is 8, and I add it to my fraction, which is 526 over 1000, because there's 3 zeros, 3 numbers, 3 zeros. Now I break it up. My first number is 5 over 10. My second one is 2 over 100. And my third one is 6 over 1000. Again, my denominators never change. It just depends how many digits there are after the comma. And you would keep going. If there were 5 digits, it would go up to 100,000. If there were 6 digits, it would go up to 1,000,000. So you just keep adding a 0 at each denominator. So that's how we express a decimal, as a sum of its fractions. Now the next section, we're going on to converting from common fractions to decimal fractions. Okay, so the steps, let's quickly go through the steps. Make sure your denominator is 10, 100, or 1000, or multiples of 10, like I spoke about here. Number 2, count how many zeros are in the denominator. That's how many numbers must be after the comma. So if there's 1 0 in our denominator, for example 10, we must have 1 number after the comma. If there's 100 as your denominator, you will have 2 numbers after the comma, and so on. Number 3, if there is a whole number, it will come before the comma, just like we did over here. Number 4, whatever your numerator is, that will be the fractional part of your decimal. Okay, so let's practice a few. The first one we've got is 16 over 100. Step 1, make sure my denominator is 10, 100, or 1000. Yes, it is. Step 2, count how many zeros are in the denominator. In this question, we have 2 zeros, so we know we're going to have 2 numbers after the comma. If there's a whole number, it will come before the comma. Do I have a whole number? No, I don't. So straight away I know my whole number is 0. Comma, because that separates our whole number and our decimal. Whatever your numerator is, that will be the fractional part of your decimal. So we said it must have 2 numbers after the comma because we have 2 zeros in the denominator. And my 2 numbers are 1 and 6 because that's my numerator. And then you're done. You converted from a fraction to a decimal. Okay, the second one, I'm just going to divide my page here. Okay, the second one, we've got 2 and 26 over 1,000. Do I have a whole number? Yes, it's 2, so that goes before the comma. Alright, now 1,000 means I have 3, or I must have 3 numbers after the comma. Now, in my numerator, I only have a 26. But 3 zeros means I have to have 3 numbers. I don't have 3 numbers. So I need to put a 0 before the 2. I can't put it after the 2 because that would mean it was 260 over 1,000. It's only 26, so it's 0.26. And then you're done. The next one, 2 over 10. Do I have a whole number? No, I don't, so it's 0, comma. I've got a 10 in my denominator, so that's 1 0. So I only need one number after the comma. My one number is my numerator. Just like that. The next one, we've got 5 and 9 over 1,000. My whole number is 5. Now you have to be very careful. My denominator is 1,000. It has 3 zeros. In other words, I need 3 numbers after the comma. Now, I've only got a 9 in my numerator. I can't put zeros after the 9 because that means 900. So I'm going to put them before. I needed 3 numbers. I only had 1, so I'm adding in zeros to fill those gaps. Alright, then we go on to the next page. There's 2 I haven't done for you, so quickly do those on your own and come back to see the answer. Okay, the first one was 4 over 100. We don't have a whole number, so we put 0, comma. 100 means 2 zeros, so that means I need 2 numbers after the comma. I only have 1 in my numerator, so I write that one at the end. I can't say 40, that means 40 over 100, so I put 0.4. So your decimal is 0.04. Then number 6, I've got 7 and then 215 over 1,000. My whole number is 7, so it's 7, comma. Now because my denominator is 1,000, I need 3 numbers as my fractional part. I've got 3 numbers there, so that is no issue. So my decimal is 7,215. And that's how we're going to convert from a fraction, a common fraction, to a decimal fraction. Number 1, make sure your denominator is 10, 100 or 1,000. Number 2, check your whole number that goes before the comma. Number 3, count how many numbers need to be after your comma, and you do that by counting how many zeros are in the denominator. And then you fill in if there's a need for an extra 0.